The first email came on a Tuesday morning as I was sitting in my small apartment in Bangkok, sipping a cup of coffee and checking my emails before heading off to my English class. The title of the email caught my attention. The words "I am so sorry for your loss" left me confused. I opened it and it was from an old friend. "Dear Rebecca, I have just heard of Sarah's unfortunate accident in Thailand. What a heartbreaking loss. Sarah was such a bright ray of light and passed away far too soon. Please know that I am thinking of your family very much." I read it 3 times at this difficult time. My coffee was cold. Sarah. They were talking about me. I was Sarah Mitchell. She was alive and well and absolutely nothing had happened to her. More emails followed, each one expressing sympathy for my loss. Old classmates, distant relatives, ex-colleagues offering condolences to my family, especially my sister Rebecca. As soon as I got on the phone, she said that I had received a condolence email about my death. There was a long pause before Sarah slowly said, "Rebecca told everyone that you had died in a motorcycle accident 2 weeks ago. She said that you were traveling in the Thai countryside." Her voice trembled a little. "Oh my God, you're still alive. You're really still alive. 6 months ago our grandmother died and left us a large inheritance. The money was to be divided equally between Rebecca and I with the proviso that we could only receive our portion of the inheritance on our own 30th birthdays. Rebecca turned 30 last month and I'm a year away from turning 30. Sarah," Emma said gently. "Rebecca applied for your portion of the inheritance. She asked her lawyer to declare you legally. Rebecca applied for your portion of the estate. She had a lawyer declare you legally dead and provided documentation of your accident, and the money was released to her last week. My legs went weak. The inheritance was substantial, almost $2 million each. Rebecca was always driven by money, always looking for more, but this was a new low in our relationship. It was she who encouraged me to follow my heart. It was she who supported me in my decision to go abroad to teach English. She must have known that you'd find out eventually, and I'm still going on." What was she thinking? I looked around my humble apartment, pictures of my adventures in Southeast Asia on the walls and stacks of test papers for my students. Sarah, Emma reminded me when I didn't respond, "What are you going to do about it?" And I took a deep breath, and my shock gave way to something colder, something more calculating. "Nothing," and I finally said, "Not yet." "What do you mean?" "Rebecca thinks she's the one, and she thinks I'm too far away from home, too out of touch with it, too unable to spot it or fight back." And the next couple of weeks were spent preparing for the job, and I took a leave of absence from my teaching position, citing a family emergency, and I didn't tell anyone I was going home, not my parents, not my old friends, except for Emma. She'd always wanted to be the social queen of Boston, and now she had the money to make that happen. But what shocked me most were the posts about me, carefully worded tributes to her beloved sister, who shortly afterward tearfully remembered me at a charity event. I said to Emma on a late-night video call. I screen-shared her to see Rebecca's latest Instagram post. It was a picture of her trying on her wedding dress. The caption said, "I hope you'll come and be my bridesmaid sister, and I know you're up there watching." And Emma let out a disgusted sound. "She's unbelievable, and your parents, they're just going along with it all. They probably think it's easier that way. They don't agree with my choices anyway. Having a daughter who died for her dreams probably fits their narrative better than a daughter who lives to disappoint them." Sarah, "It doesn't matter. I'm done with her. All that matters now is to make sure that Rebecca's perfect wedding has a dramatic ending." I've watched from afar as Rebecca's wedding draws nearer every day. With the same skill, she plays the role of the greeting sister and the shy bride role. And every time I saw her picture in the local society pages, every time I read sympathetic comments about her loss, my resolve grew stronger. The weekend before the wedding, Emma and I sat in the living room of her house hammering out the details of the plan. "Are you sure?" I shook my head. It wasn't just my money she had stolen, Emma. She had stolen my identity, my very existence. She had turned me into a sob story that she could use to gain sympathy, and if I dealt with this legally, she would find a way to complicate things, find a way to victimize herself. No, she needed to face what she had done openly and in front of all the people who mattered to her. Thinking about the last time I saw them before I left for Thailand 3 years ago, the disappointment in their eyes, the tight-lipped smiles, the negative comments about wasting my potential, I said quietly that they could have stopped her, questioned her story, done something about it, but they might have helped her. The morning of Rebecca's wedding, it was just after dawn, and I stood in Emma's bathroom, staring at my own reflection as I carefully applied my makeup. I had carefully chosen my outfit, a dark blue gown that I knew would photograph well. I shook my head and pinned my hair back. "No, you're going to alert them there." I needed to be surprised, just have my car ready to leave the Four Seasons Boston quickly if things got bad. When I arrived, the place was decked out, white flowers everywhere, champagne flowing, and Boston's elite partying in their finest. I found a quiet corner at the back of the ballroom where the wedding ceremony would take place. The ceremony was partially hidden behind huge flower arrangements from where I could see everything: the elaborate arch where Rebecca would take her vows, the rows of expensive chairs filled with Boston's social elite, the Stram Quartet warming up in the corner. My parents arrived early, of course, Mom in her expensive designer gown. Dad looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo as they bustled around the room like professionals, accepting congratulations and sympathy. I thought bitterly that the gown probably cost more than a year's salary and was probably bought with my money. She was all smiles as she pleaded for attention to every inch of her. As the string quartet began their accompaniment and Rebecca's bridesmaids paraded in their pink gowns, the guests hurried back to their seats. As the master of ceremonies welcomed everyone, he spoke of love, commitment, and new beginnings, and then he uttered the words I'd been waiting for: "And if anyone knew of any reason why these two shouldn't get married, speak now or forever hold your peace." As Rebecca turned to the sound of my voice, her face turned white, and the bucket slipped out of her hands, hitting the floor with a soft thud. I slowly walked down the aisle. "I'm sorry I'm late. I'm dead. Your schedule will be disrupted." Rebecca's van. Mark looked at us confused as he asked Rebecca what she was talking about. 2 months ago she forged a document about a motorcycle accident in Thailand. She could also claim an early $2 million from my grandmother's estate. "That's what my life is worth to her." "That's not true," Rebecca stammered, but her voice was weak. "I thought we all thought. What do you think my claim is now that I'm standing just a few steps away from her? I don't realize that I'm so remote, so disconnected from my family that you can erase me, take what's mine, and build your perfect life on top of it." "Sarah," my father stood up, his face. I interrupted. "After she'd spent my money, after she'd cemented her status as Boston's grieving socialite, or after she'd finished acting out the tragic sister who'd lost her siblings to a reckless lifestyle. You know what the worst part is? You didn't just steal my money, you stole my existence. You turned me into a story, a tragic cautionary tale that you can use to garner sympathy. And I'm not a story, I'm not a tragedy, I'm your sister, and I'm alive." Rebecca's perfect wedding was disintegrating by the minute mark. Rebecca turned to her fiancé and reached for his hand, but he stepped back and looked at her as if he were seeing her for the first time. He asked in a low voice, "Did you really declare your own sister dead for money?" He turned on his heel and walked away, ignoring her follow-up questions. I watched my sister's carefully constructed world crumble around her. The perfect bride, the perfect daughter, the perfect woman of society. It was all washed away in a storm of shocked whispers and accusing staircases. "I've already sent these documents to the police and to our family solicitor, but I think everyone here should know exactly who they're celebrating today." My mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her face, and Sarah begged me that we could talk about this in private as a family. "From the moment you decided it was easier to believe I was dead than to accept me for who I really am, we were no longer a family." The aftermath of Rebecca's wedding was exactly the kind of social scandal that Boston's elite would gossip about for years. My cell phone buzzed with a steady stream of messages from old acquaintances, distant relatives, and even journalists asking for comment. I ignored most of them and simply spoke to them through the family lawyer as we began the process of recovering our inheritance and prosecuting fraud. The police wanted to question Rebecca, Emma told me over coffee the morning after the wedding, and apparently she wasn't answering her phone. "She was probably hiding out at our parents' house," I said as I put the phone down. "That's where she always runs when things go wrong." A week after the wedding, I received an unexpected visitor at Emma's apartment, Mark, Rebecca's next of kin husband. I studied him closely. He looked tired, nothing like the confident groom he was at the wedding. I replied honestly, "I knew she was ambitious, materialistic even, but this time, announcing my death, I never thought she'd go that far." He nodded slowly. "I'd permanently annulled the engagement," he said. I can't be with someone who'd do such a thing to her own sister after he'd left." I sat on the couch in Emma's house, thinking back on everything that had led up to this moment: years of strained family dynamics, pressure to conform, erosion of sisterly love until it became something cold and transactional. I agreed to meet them in a quiet cafe downtown. They looked older and more fragile than I remembered. Somehow Mom's hands were shaking as she stirred her untouched coffee. Dad was afraid to look me in the eye. We didn't even know it. Mom started whispering about what Rebecca had done, and we really thought I was dead. "I finished it for her, and you didn't think to check, to ask questions, to try and call me." "We tried calling your old number. Dad said he called once a week but couldn't get through." "I changed my number 2 years ago." I said, "Have you tried Emil's social media? I'm at school in Bangkok. It's still easier to believe I'm dead. They exchanged glances, and I saw the truth in their silence. They accepted Rebecca's story because it fit their narrative. The tragic end of the willful daughter proved their warnings and criticisms correct. "She's your sister," he pleaded. "Surely you don't want her in jail," I interrupted. "Don't ask me to protect her. She's trying to wipe me out of the world for money. She's in no position to play the sister card now." I stood up. "Pack up my things. I'm going back to Bangkok next week." Mom's voice was a little shaky. "But we just got you back." I looked at them both with a mixture of sympathy and sadness. "You never lost me," I whispered. "You just never accepted me for who I really am." She was also asked to publicly apologize and correct all the false statements she had made about my death. I watched her apologize from Bangkok, looking small and downtrodden in front of the camera, nothing like the confident socialite she was. 6 months later, I received an email from Rebecca, a lengthy one, full of apologies and explanations, talking about healing, realizations, and remorse, and she wrote about the experience of growing up in my shadow, which was ironic because I had always felt like I was being overshadowed by her, and how the pressures of maintaining a perfect image and how the pressure to be perfect warped her into someone she didn't even recognize. I read it several times but didn't write back. Maybe one day we'll find a way to rebuild some kind of relationship, but for now, I think the distance is right. I have my life in Bangkok, my students, my freedom, and most importantly, myself alive, whole, and unwilling to be erased. Emma's small wedding on the beach, on which she had written a note, "This time you better be alive to be there in person." I smiled and marked the date on my calendar. Some bridges had burned beyond repair, but others had grown stronger through the ordeal, and I learned who really cared about me, not as a daughter of a community or a tragic story, but as myself. As I sat in my Bangkok apartment grading papers and preparing lessons, I thought about legacy and family and what it means to truly exist. Rebecca thought she could erase my existence with paperwork and lies, but she failed to understand something fundamental: that our existence is not defined by legal documents, inherited money, or societal approval, that we exist in the lives we touch, the choices we make, the truth of the lives we choose to live, and that no one, not even family, has the power to take that away.